Berlin, Russia was the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. And they'd say, oh, but aren't you so glad that you're in America? I said, well, I know a lot of Russian filmmakers. They have a lot more freedom than I have. All they have to do is be careful about criticizing the government.
That's right. It's Pop Life with Jason Myles and Conan Neutron. Now with more Conan Neutron and less Jason Myles. Jason Myles will unfortunately not be joining us today. He has previous engagement, personal engagements. So he asked me to continue on with the show, soldier on, some might say, to ask the question, was 1984 the greatest year of music? This is the third in a series of shows about various years that we have asked that same question, and we get to examine all the records that came out that year, maybe the ones people know, maybe the ones people don't know and should know. And of course, all this is done in the standard This Is Revolution Pop Life manner in an irreverent, loving, and snarky way. So today, very pleased to have on a special guest from another show, a show that both Jason and myself have been on, that I can highly recommend, called 1001 Album Complaints. And this is, I'll bring him on to talk about it, but this is a podcast that I actually listen to, and I think it's very interesting. We'll be having Rob on to talk about the records of 1984. In fact, what the hey, why don't we just bring him in right now? Rob,
Hey,
Rob Cassis, how are you doing?
Great to see you, man.
Give me the pitch on the 1001 Album Complaints show, because I think it's an interesting show, but I think it's maybe a little inscrutable if people aren't familiar.
Thanks, Conan. Yes, it is a weekly show where we tell the backstory and nitpick and complain about classic albums as laid out in Robert Dimery's 1001 Albums You Must Hear Before You Die. So it's a group of musicians, group of old friends. We randomly select a record every week, do a bunch of research, tell a story, give the nuances of what happened in the studio, and laugh about it, poke a lot of fun, and ultimately vote on whether or not you really needed to hear that record before you died or not.
And of course, you guys are coming from a position where you're music lovers, you play music, you make records as well. It's coming from an informed place, things along those lines.
And with love, I should say. We like to poke fun with love, because the premise was always, we've all made music. We've been on stage and in the studio countless hours. And this is how musicians talk at the bar. We just like to nitpick even the stuff we really love. So it's coming from a place of respect and fanship, not to try to tear people down or anything like that. But we just try to have fun with it.
It does get snarky, but it's not coming from a mean-spirited place. No, it's actually very interesting that that's kind of how the origin of this show came, which Jason sort of wanted to recreate the conversations in the van, where you're breaking up a drive from point A to point B and be like, hey, what about this year? Remember when that came? Oh, what else came out that year? And I hearken it back to, and of course, I guess I should potentially introduce myself, because people get mad when I don't do that in this show, since I'm not on all the time. I, of course, am a lifelong musician myself, touring and recording with the band Conan Neutron, The Secret Friends. I have a show called Protonic Reversal. It's a one-on-one interview show about music. And it has been going for 10 years now. Sort of outstanding in its field, some might say. But I'm also, just like you, Rob, just like Jason, like a huge music lover, music advocate. And I come from the place of, first of all, there were record stores. Secondly, I worked in one. And these are the kind of conversations you'd also have like in a record store, and presumably still do. It's a little more of a niche thing now. Where the only cultural cachet we have for this is high fidelity, right? But it's like the high fidelity sort of talks of that go on. And I think we're in a situation where that provides a lot of value for people. That can be an avenue for musical discovery itself, and we can have these conversations in a public forum with engagement from everyone. And that's the origin of this show. And so I think it's perfect for you. And I'm interested to hear you talk about records that you do like, because
Yeah, sure. There's
I feel like that
some.
comes out in your show, but it comes out almost like as a it's like a side effect, right? It's like the shrapnel of the grenade.
Well, first of all, Conan, thank you for introducing yourself. But dear audience, if you don't know, Conan is like the hardest working man in 21st century show business. So he's juggling so many things. He's out on tour. He's making records with a whole bunch of different people. He's hosting several podcasts. He's talking to musical luminaries. Give this man your attention and possibly your dollars, please.
Hopefully your dollars. Yes. Thank you. I appreciate you, Rob. You're a good friend. I don't have Jason's soundboard. I'll be playing the applause lines that he normally does when something like that is said. But
just one more note, and I know this format's gonna be a little different, but what we try to do on 1001 Album Complaints is through the research, through understanding, learning more about these records, how they're made, where the artists at in their career, what else is going on in the world at that time. You gain appreciation through that as well. And so I'm a big fan of that idea. And so it's fun to do the research for the show, or even if I'm not the one doing the research, because we kind of trade off. If I'm just listening, I'm learning, I'm hearing a story about something. I'm always fascinated by that, regardless of how I feel about the end product.
I was actually talking to Jason. I was saying, like, it's funny that one of the biggest podcasts that does like the collectivist labor project is 1001 Album Complaints, because I never know necessarily who's going to be hosting, who's even going to be on it. But you guys work so well as a unit, as a group, like with a unified objective that again does involve that discovery, that does involve not passing judgment, come from a place of curiosity on stuff. Jason was on. That was a great episode about a band that. I'm like, I have no interest in this record whatsoever, but I can't wait to see what these guys have to talk about it.
Jason came over to talk about Slipknot, the Slipknot debut.
Yep. And
it was a ton of fun. And I learned a lot. I can't say that music is really for me, but that's fine.
Right.
But I learned a lot, and I certainly respect the journey.
Well, and it comes from a place of respect. And I think that's why I like it. So that's enough of a free advertisement for you. But I think folks that like this show, and for sure this subsection of a show, that especially love popping off in the comments, would find a lot of value for your show as well. So
awesome. Well, thanks for having me on.
So it's a pretty loose formatted show, but the key and the criteria is we're talking about records released in 1984, and I think we have to start with 1984 by Van Halen, right? How can we not?
I mean, we should, yes. Well, you wanted to start on a positive note, right?
Right, exactly. Well, I mean, what was your first exposure to 1984 by Van Halen?
Oh, that's a good question. It almost certainly had to be the MTV music video for Hot for Teacher. That's, and this would have been a few years after that, but I was watching MTV very heavily in my childhood, 87 to 92. I was pretty much glued to that screen at all times possible. So I'm going to guess it was in that zone. And I remember certainly David Lee Roth, and I don't think I was old enough or wise enough to appreciate the intro to the song, and maybe they even cut it out of the video. I'm not 100% sure.
Oh, with the drums, yeah.
Right.
It's like a Buddy Rich style Alex Van Halen drum bit.
Yeah. It might literally be, this is hyperbolic, but it could apply. It might be the best intro ever. Just the whole thing, not just the drums, but even how the guitar comes in, how it lands in that groove, and it just is going at 100 miles per hour from there.
Sure.
Pretty awesome.
And then, we got to talk. If we're talking about Van Halen, and this is the first one we're starting with, this is it's like their sixth record, maybe if I remember correctly, because you got there's Van Halen, there's Van Halen 2, Women and Children First, Fair Warning, Diver Down, and then 1984. They had their thing down pretty well at this point. I also think it's notable that one of the the biggest hit, I guess, right? Was Jump, because Hot for Teacher was a hit, but Jump was, I think, even bigger.
Yeah.
Then, of course, one of the greatest guitar players of the time decided, I'm going to play keyboard. I'm going to play keyboard.
It's weird call. I know. And there's a bunch of keyboard music on this. I gave this another spin.
Absolutely.
The whole record a spin in preparation for this week. And I was surprised at how, I mean, there's a lot of guitar theatrics, of course, but
Sure.
yeah, a weird amount of synth and not guitar.
And it really, it was honestly just something he wanted to do. He was like, I've got a cool idea here. Like, I really want to do this. I want to show that I can do this, and I want to do this in a cool way. And everyone's like, okay, go ahead. You're kind of like one of the greatest guitarists in the world. Maybe you should play guitar, but okay.
Well, it works. The formula works.
It worked just fine for Van Halen. 1984.
I think Jump is great. I think Hot for Teacher is great. I actually think Panama is secretly my favorite Van Halen track. It's sort of a perfectly crafted, fun. I'm not telling tales out of school. Everyone knows Panama is great, but
yeah.
Specifically the bridge in Panama. I always hold that up as my example of a really, really excellent bridge. It does everything it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
It cools you down to get you ready to rock again.
I can barely see the road.
Right. It's got the vocal
it's like a talk up.
Totally. Right. And then the way the chords like ramp you back into the chorus, it's just it's perfectly done. It does exactly what a bridge of a song is supposed to do.
Yeah, and it's look, and you're either in for that or you're not, but love it or loathe it, like it's emblematic of an entire time, right? Like there's a reason why it was a huge hit, and there's a reason why people think, oh yeah, 80s. I think of 80s when I hear that. Totally. And there's really good reason. Of course, we got a million records to get to. Any last thoughts on 1984?
Yes, I do have one complaint, Conan. You didn't think you were going to get through
of
this without
course
me
you do.
It's in your
podcast.
A little something. Sure. I was surprised. The record's great overall, but the drum sound is kind of not great. Even the kick and the snare weirdly sound like the same thing almost. There's not a lot of differentiation between the drums. I don't know if they didn't tune them correctly or if he was just playing such a big kit and it was the 80s. They didn't know how to record drums. I'm not really sure what's going on. The playing is great, but the actual drum sound I found lacking.
I call that drum sound cocaine decisions personally. That's just me. Your mileage may vary. No, I agree, and there is something to be said for there's certain aesthetic choices, the gated snares, things along those lines that really showed up in the 80s that while trying to sound quote unquote contemporary at the time, it ends up sounding of that time. Just like when suddenly everybody's using auto tune on everything, right? After they heard that Cher song, and suddenly everybody wanted to.
Yeah, sure.
It's like, oh my god, enough with this auto tune. Why don't we talk about an obscure indie artist by the name of Prince at this time? Sure. And a little record called Purple Rain.
Oh,
yeah. You heard about this guy? Yeah. Young up and comer. Yeah. That was a big record.
I mean, I'm a fan. I'm a fan. It's a great record. It's an iconic record, certainly. I think it's a little spotty, personally. I'm not the biggest Prince stan this world has ever seen. There's plenty of great stuff on Purple Rain, including the title track and the opening track, Let's Go Crazy, which to me is
Go Crazy is one of my favorite.
Really fun one. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And I think there's some, Darling Nikki does a very specific sleazy thing that is in the pantheon of sleazy songs. It's very good. I think I Would Die For You. That's another good one. Yeah,
that's a good one.
Even though I don't like, I've never liked and I attribute it to Prince, but it's like sort of AOL speak too. AOL chat speak. Replacing FOR for the number 4 and YOU for you. I've always hated that.
Bad grammar in music. Yeah, I know what you mean. I don't love that either.
Sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't. But yeah, I mean, we're talking about this. This is a guy that I mean, he was doing it all, right? And there's it's the whole soundtrack record aspect of it. Like, think about like him being a pop star
Yes.
and doing that, right?
I'll give you some pros and cons. Pros are, because we covered this record on 1001 Album Complaints.
That's one of the reasons why I wanted to pick it. Yeah.
Over a year ago. Many highs, right? And one of the things that I learned that I really loved about it is that a couple of these tracks are recorded live, including Purple Rain, right? And that is
crazy.
Really, really cool. And they sound good enough to be studio tracks, right? And so that's just
Absolutely.
a cool aspect of how they did things. I also think you have to give credit where credit's due. When Doves Cry is not really my favorite track, but nothing else in the world sounds like that. So
it's immediately unique. And also he wrote that after everything was done, right? Like it was already after the rest of the record was done. And it's very bare production wise, even for the 80s. Like, there's not a saxophone to be found,
Yeah. Indeed. I think though, this idea that Prince does everything, can do everything, that is a mystique that he has been cultivating or did cultivate throughout his life. And props to him, right? He was great at marketing amongst other things. But I remember in prep for our show going deep on this one, I watched Purple Rain, the movie. And man, the thing he's not good at is acting.
That's who's the bad guy in that? Oh my God! They're
from The Time.
Morris Day.
Morris Day, yeah.
I saw them at the I think it was the Alameda County Fair. Morris Day at the time. And honestly, kind of ripped, frankly. But I would say Morris Day did a pretty good job of being the heavy on that.
Yeah. No, I liked him. It's because I think the deal with this was that he put the record company to the screw. He put the screws to him and said, like, no, I need to have a starring movie, and I need to be the star, and it needs to happen, and that's the only way we're going to continue this relationship. And so they made it happen, and it's a time capsule. Certainly, I'm not going to say it's not worth watching, but it's not good by almost. The coolest part is that you get to see the band play live.
Yeah, the live stuff is like, come on, get out of here. Like that's you're gonna be mad about that. No, but it's definitely a flex. It's a career flex in that sort of 80s sort of way.
Right.
Dr. Claw in the comments here saying Purple Rain was the next stage forward from 1999. His first huge break, though. It was also strange enough the album that moved the PMRC to action, which is correct. That was a huge part of the mid 80s, and that led, of course, to Tipper Gore and all that. Frank Zappa,
interesting.
Del Biafra, and the obscenity trial with the Frankenchrist,
right?
Record. So
this is again, before you're talking about the movement that eventually created the explicit labels on CDs, etc. Right?
The parental warning stickers that made it look like the coolest thing you've ever seen, and certainly made the records way cooler.
Let me ask you this though: do you think so? That makes me want to give a little more credit to Prince. I like that he's pushing that on
because he's doing like Darling Nikki, right? I mean, it's like whoa, dude, that's okay.
Yes, it's provocative. I definitely don't think it's his best work. I think my complaint about Prince is just that he puts out so much material that quantity gets in the way of quality sometimes. There's some really high quality stuff on this record, and I think there's just some toss-offs because he's moving so damn fast, But I like that he pissed off Tipper Gore. That's cool.
Yeah. Well, anything that pissed off Tipper Gore is okay in my book. Before we move on here, let's see. Obsessive Audio saw the time live at Nathan Phillips Square, Toronto, around 2011. Amazing. Yeah, I had no notes. I was like, it was a great show. Like, and I say that as someone that like, I don't really throw on a more Stay in the Time record necessarily, but as a live unit, they cooked, man. It was great.
Yeah.
Let's talk about and anything else for that before we move on. I'm trying to keep it.
Nah, good with that. Yeah, keep it rolling.
We gotta keep going. I'm gonna go with Hüsker Dü, Zen Arcade. Here's why. I just had Greg Norton on Protonic Reversal.
Nice.
last week, so it's very front of mind. The first double record coming from the punk rock world, which also led the Minutemen, who you did cover, to do a an escalation themselves.
Didn't they come out? Weren't they purposely out on the same day because they were label mates, right?
Yep. And buddies too, like, you know, and it was like competitive, but in that way that where artists push each other to be competitive to
Yeah.
create better art, right? Ideally.
Yeah, perhaps you can school me a little bit because I don't know. I did listen to probably the first half of Zen Arcade this
Yeah.
week for the first time, Conan. I apologize, but
Oh, really? Wow. Okay.
yes.
Well,
maybe
okay,
you can
so
tell me.
without Zen Arcade,
the respect is there, but I don't get it as much. Again, it's not all music is made for me. That's perfectly fine. But tell me more.
sure. So the thing about Hüsker Dü, and especially at that time, is that they were blending pop melodies with aggression, meaning that you do not get the Pixies, you do not get Nirvana, you certainly don't get the Foo Fighters
Right.
without Hüsker Dü. And it's their second record and their second full length. Again, double length. You can make all the jokes you want about every double record. That could just be a better single record, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
But there's a lot there. You know, Something I Learned Today is amazing. Pink Turns to Blue. Just things that like we think of. And also, this is objectively a weird sounding record too.
Yeah.
This is Spot. Spot, who passed away. He did a lot of the SST stuff. Black Flag, he did a lot of Miniman stuff. And there's a certain aesthetic that people ascribe to like his production capabilities that largely is due to the budget they had available in the studios that they had available.
Yeah.
But it ended up being an almost accidental like production hallmark. So I mean, its place in history, it shows up on all these lists, right? Zen Arcade, especially of all
Sure.
the Hüsker Dü records, whether it's my favorite or not. And you know, they're a fast, aggressive band with like crazy catchy hooks. And for some people, it's like Zen Arcade was the nadir of what they did, and like they did different stuff, but they peaked with that one, and for other people do not agree with that. But that said, it's got some of their most noteworthy songs, and it's got, again, if you have never heard Zen Arcade and you listen to it, it's very easy to think about in terms of modern construct of like, yeah, imagine this being in 1984. Where again, like you got a Van Halen, you know, and there's not interesting music that's
Sure.
happening, but even hardcore itself is going away. It's going towards propulsiveness without hooks of any kind. And that's what changed the game for them. And Bob Mould continued that, of course, for Sugar. But you had two really killer songwriters, one of which was the drummer Grant Hart. That they would take off doing songs. Wildly creative band at the peak of their power, incredible live act that inspired bands all around to make other records. And again, Dave Grohl is the first one to mention there would not be a Foo Fighters without Hüsker Dü. Now, whether that's a good or bad thing, not for me to say.
Okay, I think you kind of did say it.
I implied. I implied it. It's fine. They got some songs, but it would be disingenuous of not to include it. So. And again, disingenuous not to mention that the Greg Norton episode of Protonic Reversal goes to the main feed on Monday as well. So if you want to hear me talk to one of the guys from that band, it's obviously a very friend of mine.
All right, I do, because I do want to understand more. So thank you for that overview. I do appreciate when you're able to mix pop with another genre like that. You know what I mean? I like the idea of keeping true to yourself and what you see as important, like the aggression and the intensity, which clearly this is intense, the energy is obvious, with some kind of accessible aesthetic. To me, that's a really cool line to ride, just in general in music.
Right. Yeah, the big thing with Hüsker Dü, they did they did a Birds cover in 1983. They did 8 Miles High, which we'll go and say was not like a common thing for punk rock bands to be doing at the time. Right?
Yeah.
But that's a perfect example of you know, like the 12 string associated that time with a very dead scene of a previous generation and making something really cool about it.
Yeah.
Much like another band also from that era, The Replacements.
Yeah.
Little record called Let It Be.
Yeah.
I love that they called it Let It Be too, where it's like, hey, you know, there's another band that had
it's a little bit it's braggadocious. I like it. So it
is braggadocious. Yeah.
So this is one. So in my mind, this is part of the family of Our Band Could Be Your Life bands, right?
Sure.
Because I read that book. Hüsker Dü were in there as well. as were Minutemen, right? And coming off of when I read that book, I don't know, 15 years ago, I actually hadn't heard many of these bands, and it caused me to jump off sample. And so Replacements were one of the ones I really discovered via that and hung on to, and they really caught my ear. I will say I like Let It Be. I will say I kind of like Tim better.
Yeah.
But they're definitely cool. I dig their aesthetic. I think it's a really fun record. I like the boldness of titling it after a Beatles record.
After a Beatles record.
Yes.
And also, by the way, throwing on a Kiss cover. Black Diamond is a Kiss cover.
I don't think I knew that.
In 1984. Oh no, and it's like a B tier Kiss song.
Yeah. Aren't they? Well, actually, aren't they all B tier in a way?
Well, hey, all right.
Okay. Well, you got to throw jabs at Foo Fighters. I got to throw jabs at Kiss. You know.
Yeah, sure. I mean, like between the two, man. But no, it like you have, I Will Dare, right? Androgynous. That was a very prescient ahead of its time song.
Oh yeah. Wait. Can I tell you a story about Androgynous? So
sure, lay it on me.
Young dorky, super dorky nerdy Rob, who was watching MTV closely for anything that was, the siren of the weird is what I was listening for when I was about 13, 14, because I was a real oddball. And so what came into my ears was a band called Crash Test Dummies, a Canadian band that had a hit in the 90s. And I bought the record with on it, but then I ended up going back and buying their first record. Anyway, long story short is they do a cover of Androgynous on that. So that's how I first learned
Replacements. Really?
About that song. And they're like this, their big weird hit aside, Crash Test Dummies are kind of a Canadian folk band. Like that first record doesn't really sound that much like the hit. I really love it. It's one of my all-time records. They're sort of defined a little bit by the lead singer has a baritone voice. But anyway, I learned that song from them ages ago. And then when I eventually heard it from the Replacements, I was like, wait a minute, what is going on right now?
Huh. All right. Crash Test Dummies, everybody. That's if you were betting that band was going to get mentioned in this show.
The first record, Ghosts That Haunt Me. That's the one I'm recommending.
All right, fair enough. I think that there's a lot before we move off of Let It Be. There's a it's another one just like Hüsker Dü that hits those lists of like, greatest songs that shape rock and roll, like those the same kinds of things that inspired the book that you based your show on, right?
Sure, totally.
I think like I Will Dare, I think has been is one of the greatest ones on theirs. But like, this is a great point. Yeah, I was gonna just mention their brattiness. Replacements used to do an entire live set of just covers that would annoy their fans.
Yeah, just walk in the room.
I had it described as like they were either the greatest rock and roll band of all time or one of the worst, depending on whatever night you caught them on. Large and how much alcohol had been consumed.
But don't you think this time period was just about people doing what they wanted to do, and that's what's cool about it?
Something called Gary's Got a Boner on here, right? I mean, like Gary's Got a Boner is like on this professional record called Let It Be. It's amazing. They gave.
And I'm by saying I like Replacements, I'm showing my hand a little bit. You already know this about me, Conan, but I just really appreciate songs and song craft, and I think it's at least easier to see at a superficial level from a band like the Replacements, from a guy like Westerberg, what's going on in the song craft. So I really dig it. He's great.
To a certain degree, it's down and dirty rock and roll, right? It's like and while there isn't like a Bastards of Young like there is on Tim, there's still a couple songs that like you're like, wow, you do indeed have to hand it to him that this is some legit stuff.
Absolutely.
I think that we would be absolutely disingenuous to not mention Run-DMC.
Oh, which Run DMC record was it?
It's the self-titled, I believe. That's
the debut then.
I think
you're right.
Yeah, so that's the self-titled record. That's 84. Talk about freaking game changers. Okay, so Foo Fighters to Hüsker Dü, right? Beastie Boys, Run DMC.
Sure,
think of that what you will as well.
Well, listen, you're throwing shade at the Beastie Boys now too?
No, I'm just saying they'll be the first ones. Like, they're the kings of rock. There is none higher. Sucker MCs, they call them sire.
Well, this is exciting. I hadn't surprisingly, I missed in my little bit of research here that this Run-DMC debut record, I have to admit, I don't know the record super well, but clearly a life-altering, a world-altering debut.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
Russell Simmons producing, one of the people producing. It's got it's like that. This is because they were the first ones to use rock samples, right? They were using, in some cases, noted riffs and parts of songs, but like repurposing them and making them into new art, which comes back to remix culture, sampling, fair use, et cetera. But it's absolutely notable that it's some of their signature songs are on here. Well, yeah, Russell Simmons didn't produce nothing. He's the promo guy. Look, he's listed as a producer on the record, so he's involved in the conversation. That's all I'm saying. I'm not, again, there's nothing better than like a couple white dudes litigating 80s hip hop.
I don't know exactly what Russell did or did not do, but I think
we weren't in the room.
Of course. I don't know what he had to do with the creativity itself, but I think it's fair to say that guys like him saw a scene, saw how they could help expand it, promote it. Those are important connector pieces in the puzzle as well, I would just say, even if they're not themselves creative individuals or whatever you want to call it.
It's the first rap album that broke big. To put it bluntly, and it changed the face of music to a certain degree. By the way, I'm not scared. I'll talk about whatever the hell I want whenever I want to. Like, nobody can stop me. Like you can try all you want. You're not gonna be able to. But you have like a drum machine and scratches, right? Like and a dream, pretty much, and just wild creativity coming from these fellas that were just shot out of a cannon.
I think it's like you said, there was this sea change, and I don't know enough to tell you if Run-DMC is the real inflection point, but they're certainly one of the big ones. A sea change between just playing a 70s funk song and rapping over it, and like either cutting things up or using other genres and then repurposing it and remixing it in a true sense of that word to get something brand new.
Right. Well, and again, when I say that broke big, I mean I'm talking about into the mainstream widespread consciousness. And Run-DMC especially, they brought back Aerosmith a couple years later with that collab / cover / reimagining of Walk This Way.
Totally.
Like Aerosmith was like, they were shoveling dirt on the corpse. As a band, like it was over, Johnny. Like it was And you know what? It was the perfect song for them to use because first of all, Run-DMC were very literate in the history of music and rock music and things along those lines. Like doing things like using like riffs from like the Knack and things along those lines.
Heck yeah.
And they struck gold themselves, but also literally brought back Aerosmith. Now, when you listen to some of those Desmond Child 90s Aerosmith songs, you may wonder if that, what hast thou wrought, Run-DMC. But from a cultural perspective, think of like things like the Judgment Night soundtrack. Think about like, these crazy collaborations. Think about Body Count, stuff like that. There's a through line through all of that to, a couple of years later, right after this record, Walk This Way. It's huge. It's a big deal.
I agree.
How do you feel about Stop Making Sense? I know you're a big Talking Heads fan.
I think it might be the best live thing ever put to tape, Conan.
It's pretty good.
It's great. I love it. I absolutely freaking love it. I had it listed as probably my personal favorite of 1984 of the records that I pulled and brought into my notes document here. To me, what's great about it is the following. One, it's a very well-designed show. For those who haven't seen it, it's Talking Heads, who are typically a 4-piece, but they had expanded out into this like 8-piece with backup singers, percussionists, Bernie Worrell's playing with them. But they, over the course of the album or the movie, there's also a movie of it, they build out the band like a piece at a time. And they're showing you how a set and a band and a whole stage production gets built. So it's very behind the scenes kind of meta at a time when that wasn't a thing, really. And then two, it's just like to me, this music that's being played there for the most part, especially once they really get cooking with the big band, is the epitome of ecstatic. It's harkening back to that like Parliament thing of trance, like just repeating bass, not a lot of changes, but they still ring so much emotion, ecstasy, and joy out of it. That's my favorite. When you're able to do something with really simple ingredients like that and just get me emotional, layering melodies and rhythms over it, man, that is so cool.
They also and of course, if folks are interested, or even just interested in like honestly one of the best movies that's about a live performance, the Jonathan Demme movie Stop Making Sense of, which is the soundtrack for it starts off just David Byrne, an acoustic guitar, and a boombox, and that's it, a Psycho Killer, and then gradually they add stuff to the set. They add band members until you get to the end. It's just this crazy, like, it's nuts how many people are on stage. It's like a ska band or something. It's wild.
And they really, it's a good example too of really adding a lot from the album recordings to the live recordings. So take a song like Life During Wartime, which had come out on Fear of Music, a Brian Eno produced record from a few years before. And I mean, that's that version, that live version on Stop Making Sense is one of my all-time favorite tracks. And it is just so elevated in all ways I can think of. Arrangement, energy from that album cut. The live cut is just so amazing. So it's an interesting study in that kind of thing too.
Talking Heads, the reunion that will never happen. Unfortunately, probably so. If there was ever a time to do it, like the re-release of the film, because the concert film they did re-release last year. They were on Colbert's show, and he more or less tried to peer pressure them into playing right then and there, and they were not having it. It would have been an amazing moment in television. He had to shoot a shot.
Part of the reason I love the band is because they didn't do it. As much as I wanted them to do it, of course, I'm sad I missed them playing. That would have been great, but there's something cool about not looking back. I just have to say it. So I'm happy. I don't think they should do it at this point.
Absolutely. I think that I mean, that's again in one of the pantheons of one of the best live records ever in my mind. So I think that's it's notable that that's on there. And again, just like Prince, big tie into it's like a movie as well, like hitting the culture in a different way. From Her to Eternity by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, debut record by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, fresh out of the birthday party, trying to put the pieces together.
Okay, this is another one where you're gonna have to school me a little bit. Give me some intel about this, and I'll happily go listen to it.
Sure. Well, I mean, I would never say that it's where people should start with Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. I think there's records that are far superior. But if you do know his former band, The Birthday Party, there is a through line that'll connect what's he doing, which is really getting into the American folk horror aspect of things and like the deepest, darkest, most jacked up part of the blues, along with more noisy stuff that kind of was atmospheric and building mood and tension and things along those lines. Again, there's other than the title track, I'm not sure there's anything like super essential on From Her to Eternity, which of course is a play off From Here to Eternity, the movie, which I think it's no Let It Be, but it's a good album title. But it's more of a calling card and a mission statement for Nick Cave, who the Bad Seeds, most of their records that are not called murder ballads, when people go back to the ones that are their favorites, it's kind of like that. It's like that late 80s and early 90s stuff, and it all starts here. I'm also bringing it up because I had Kid Congo Powers on, who played in Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds for a while. So again, another plug for my show, Protonic Commercial, if you want to hear about that stuff.
Oh yeah, I feel like you've probably skipped over some of the people that you've talked to that have been involved in these records, Conan. You've talked to everybody, man. You're I don't know who your booker is. What's your booker's name?
I'm going to give him a raise. That's for sure. It would be disingenuous not to mention that I'm the one on this show when it's the normal alignment. I'm always trying to bring in records like that are like, oh yeah, this is going to change the face of music. Not right with this one, but but it is eventually going to change the face of music because of what happens.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, without Jason being here, I feel like we don't have as much metal representation as
Sure.
maybe some people would like, certainly in the comments. Ride the Lightning comes out this year.
Yeah.
Ride the Lightning, Metallica. Heard of these guys, Rob?
Yeah.
Familiar?
Ride the Lightning rips. There's no doubt about it. It's
Yeah.
not peak Metallica quite yet, in my opinion. But yes, we're getting there. There's some great tracks.
I mean, this is what this one's got. For Whom the Bell Tolls, you know.
For Whom the Bell Tolls is not. Yeah, it's good. They're great at titling songs. Can we just say that? I don't know. I feel like this is maybe my least favorite of the first 4 Metallica records. Though.
What on earth are you talking about? Really?
Really?
Okay.
How would you rank the first 4 then? Give me that, because you got to rank them somehow, right? But I like Kill 'Em All more than this, certainly, and I definitely like Master of Puppets more than this.
I would say Master of Puppets first. Kill 'Em All is really good though. Hold on a second. Let me actually look to see what they are.
It's tough, right? I'm not listening.
Kill 'Em All, Ride the Lightning, Master of Puppets, and Justice. You know what? Here's the problem. I don't like listening to Justice because I hate the mix.
Yeah.
Like, you got to give it. It's Injustice for All. You got to give it up. Come on, you're gonna hate on that record.
Well,
I mean, it's ridiculous.
Bass players and bass playing. And I'm okay with the mix.
Yeah, so did they. Yeah. Okay. So if we're doing a ranked system,
No,
I think I put Ride the Lightning above Kill 'Em All personally.
Oh, really? Okay. No, fair enough. I'm just saying that I think it is great. It's above a threshold. You know, it goes far beyond most things in this world, certainly. So I'm not really complaining about it, but I'm just saying compared to their other work, I think it's not quite as exciting. Great title.
I mean, yeah, Ride the Lightning, yeah. And that was there was something kind of dangerous about it, right? I remember being like, oh, Call of Cthulhu. Oh, wow, that's scary sounding, you know.
Totally.
And it's hard to, Trapped Under Ice, Creeping Death, like there's some solid jams on there.
Hey, well, Conan, let me ask you a question, because I feel like we've talked from so many hours in our recorded and unrecorded lives, but I don't quite know the answer to this question. When did you get into, you said you worked at a record store, but that must have been way later, like in the 90s, right? Late 90s.
94, 95.
So was that the first time you were digging into indie music? Because I have to assume, you don't have an older brother, right, to introduce you to this stuff. Yeah. Like you had to have started like me, just like watching MTV and going like, I guess that's what's good. Like moving on.
Nirvana was kind of a game changer for me, right? And then I went Nirvana, like, okay, who do they thank you in the CD album notes, right? Okay, that led me to like Butthole Surfers, that led me to Sonic Youth, that led me to Melvins, that led me to Mudhoney, that led me to Meat Puppets, like all these other kind of bands. And then you just be like, okay, who do these bands hang out with? Who do they like? So on and so on. Nice. But working the record store, and again, cannot overstate how much of an anachronism this sounds like. But having access to all this music, again, which everybody does now, but like at the time we didn't, that I got to find, oh, look, there's some like old country artists that are like really great. And I just basically dismissed that genre entirely because I didn't like what I was hearing on like the radio station in my hick-ass town that I came from. And turns out lots of stuff in rap and hip hop that's actually awesome, that like isn't necessarily what's the stuff that's like popular at the time that I wasn't vibing with. Jazz, there's great jazz, there's so on and so on. And finding value in all of these genres that it's like, oh yeah, genre is not best exemplified by the worst portrayer of it.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Pop music. And that sort of opened my world to like, oh, maybe I need to be more curious about, finding cool value and stuff. Like I remember like first time I heard Outkast, I was like, wow, these guys are like, they're coming at this from a totally different place. And I didn't even understand they were from Atlanta, but I'm like, it's crazy that I would not have expected any of this, but it all works for me. And that's way before
but also you do with maybe you would admit you kind of need the bad to play against to get to the good.
Oh, sure. Dude, you've not heard my rants that I did against Hank Williams Jr. at the time, which we actually shared a bill with at the Wisconsin State Fair.
Really?
Like, hell yeah. This is so weird. I love it. No, I mean, I choose to kind of shine a light on the things that I do love, or they're at least interesting. Like, look, I love Iggy Pop. What first time I came on 1001 Album Complaints
Yeah.
was literally to discuss one of the best rock and roll records of all time, Funhouse.
Yes.
But Iggy Pop, in the 80s were not great for Iggy Pop. Let's put it that way.
Right, exactly. I mean, every artist has their ups and downs. That's fine.
Yeah, there was some like probably one of the best songs from that era was like a duet with Kate Pearson of the B-52s. And it was good, but it was like kind of like, all right, this is some pretty I didn't have Iggy Pop go into the cheeseball 80s balladry on my radar. And there's, at one point he just Butttown. Enough said. Like it's
right. I remember. Yeah, we touched. You let me know about Butttown.
Butttown, yeah.
When we were talking about Funhouse. Yeah, yeah. I'm never into blind devotion to an artist. I think it's always weird. Even the people I love.
Candy, I can't let you go. That's it, buddy. An Anarchist. You got it.
If you're going to. My mom always used to tell me a story about how she saw Hard Day's Night in the theater, the Beatles movie, and how people were just screaming at the screen. And she's like, I have to leave. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I mean, I love the Beatles. I love lots of things, but that would never, ever be me.
I really enjoy the multi-part examination of Abbey Road that you guys just did, because that is my favorite Beatles record. And I was like, oh, they're finally doing a Beatles record, and they're doing it in like like an
exhaustive way. You're a gentleman and a
exhaustive.
scholar for saying that, Conan. Thank you that you like Abbey Road. But I don't know. My favorite tidbit from that, because we always come away with these factoids, was that they're in the studio. They don't really know if it's going to be the last time. They're fighting. They're talking about the album cover. They're like, we should call it Everest because it's so hard. This is so hard for us to do, to be superstars. And we should fly to Mount Everest and be in the Himalayas and take this picture. And they're like, nah, fuck it. Let's just walk outside.
Or we can walk outside and take the picture there. Yeah.
That laziness really, really won the day on that one.
Amazing. Are you an Iron Maiden guy? I can't. I think you covered an Iron Maiden album.
I wouldn't say I'm an Iron Maiden guy, but I have some appreciation for Iron Maiden in a very general sense.
Power Slave comes out that year. For years I was more of I respect Iron Maiden more than I enjoy listening to them. Yeah. Until I saw that Flight 666 documentary where Bruce Dickinson, the guy who like duels for fun and like lives in a castle and he flies planes. He flew the band around all these remote areas of the world.
Really?
These huge shows to their fans, and it was really awesome and life affirming, and kind of made me re-examine Maiden. But I will say Power Slave as a record, pretty good. You got Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, you got 2 Minutes to Midnight. It's great. If you
that's a good song.
Think that song sucks, you're an idiot. Ace is High. Like
I'm one of these guys who knows the hits. I've been learning to appreciate the genre very generally, probably over the last decade. But the catalog is so big and so intimidating that I haven't really gotten to every piece of it.
If you say this, you will be crucified next to the Eddie statue around Iron Maiden fans. But I think that they're the perfect example of you get a friend to make you like a compilation, like whether it be a playlist or mixtape, whatever it is, of just like all the best Iron Maiden songs, because they do have a lot of material, and a lot of it's like yes, that is interesting. That is an interesting record, and I don't want to listen to it. Personally.
Well, because you were in the record store business, maybe you feel differently, but I want to rep I love albums so much. I love the album as a format. However, greatest hits played a really important role in my upbringing and understanding of the canon. They have a function. They help guide you through things. They're like the survey course in these bands with these long histories. So I think that's a totally reasonable way. And if when you like what you hear, then you can go off in different directions. And now I think playlists have kind of taken on that role, right? And like I had a friend recently, I was talking to him about wanting to get deeper into metal, because I like aspects of it, but I feel like it's such an intimidating catalog to really go deep on. He was like, no, I'll make you this playlist. It's like a tapas plate of metal, and you can decide. And it has these.
That's a great album title, by the way. That's up there, pocket full of kryptonite.
Right, and no, but it was, the point is, it was
tapas
really
plate of metal.
It was really helpful. It was a bunch of different bands, also different subgenres of metal. He put Animals as leaders on there. You know, he put proggier stuff on there. He put some Dream Theater on there. He put like darkier doomer stuff on there. My point is that like they're helpful ways to find your way through a dark forest.
Right.
So I just don't think we should shit on them. That's all.
As a metal, no, for certainly not. But like as a metal neophyte or metal curious, sure. Like Slayer's another good example. I love Slayer, but like I think that which they did not put out a record in '84, unfortunately, but if you're trying to introduce someone to Slayer, you know, I think obviously you put Raining Blood, Angel of Death on there, but you got to have like South of Heaven, you know, like you got if you pick and choose a couple songs from each of them, you can get like, okay, this is like the wide breadth of what they do and why they defined a genre.
Yeah.
And then again, taking like what Metallica did and went way farther with it, and it basically started an arms race where everybody lost, frankly, for thrash bands that, you know, occasionally there's some go, Jason's gonna be so pissed. He's mad right now. He's like yelling at the phone. That, you know, it's interesting to look at it from a historical perspective of where it all went and which genres were sort of subgenres were influenced by that and things like that. And you get a sort of like you're able to look at it historically within the framework of the band itself rather than just through all of musical history. And then you can like, perfect example, like you could do that. I have done that with the band Sparks. I made a compilation of all their stuff from the very beginning to like whatever the last record comes out. And it's like, okay, well, I like, you know, this stuff, the more glammy sounding stuff. Okay, great. Well, there's 3 records you need to focus on. That's like late 70s. It's over here. I really like the stuff that, you know, that's like very synthy based. Okay, well, you want number 1 song in Heaven. You know, there's Erasure owes their entire career to that record. And you know, and you're in a situation where you can kind of pick and choose and cherry pick what you want based upon that. So I'm a big fan of that, and I'm a big fan of having someone that is going to come at it from a place of love and a place of interest, and honestly probably take the predilections and interests of the listener at heart and be like, oh, I think Rob would like, you know, X, Y, and Z.
Absolutely. That's ideal. If you have someone who's willing to put that time in, that's great. But I'm just saying, yeah, Survey Course, a greatest hits, a compilation, they've been really helpful for me in finding my way through this thing called music.
Speaking of Sparks did put, I just checked, Sparks did put out a record this year. I don't like it though. It's pulling rabbits out of a hat.
Is there any year they don't put out a record? They put out a lot of music.
They do. They put out a lot of records. Yeah. There was a sort of in the Edgar Wright documentary, you get a real sense of that other than Angst in My Pants in '82, which is great. One of their best. There's a few records where like, yeah, they were kind of in the wilderness a little bit. There's like a 90s era where they're really in the wilderness a little bit. Pulling rabbits out of a hat is only worth mentioning because I literally mentioned Sparks a minute ago.
Sure.
From the comments, I'm going to throw this in. Gun Club, Las Vegas Story was 84. Good record by like the first 2 much more. Agreed. Just had Kid Congo Powers on from Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds and the Cramps and the Gun Club. So if you want to hear about Las Vegas Story, listen to that most recent Protonic reversal because we talk about that record a lot. Specifically.
Heck yeah.
Gun Club's great.
That's accessible now, Conan, or that's coming out?
That is accessible. You do not need to pay me any money. It's in the free feed right now. Sparks does indeed have the creepy keyboard guy. You could. I'll take it. You absolutely could and should. Sparks has the crazy keyboard guy, right? Yes. When I made this compilation, I was telling y'all about, I literally entitled it "The Pretty Boy and the Guy Who Looks Like Hitler."
Yeah, he's really rocking that Hitler mustache. They're brothers, right?
Credits too. They are brothers.
They don't look that similar. That's why it's confusing.
I honestly think one of the best entry points into Sparks is watching that Edgar Wright documentary because he does such a good job of it, and
fun.
He gives you.
Yeah, I agree.
It's so well done, and I'm saying that as someone that like, look, I'll watch any band's documentary. Like I don't really care, but like most of them are bad. This one is very good.
You know what? I'm glad to hear you say that, and I would have to agree. And I like that, not a disclaimer, but the context you just gave of like, you're actually the person who can tell me what's good. And you know, one of the reasons it is good, you could argue that many documentaries are made with love, but you can tell that Edgar Wright is really steeped in Sparks lore. He really cares
The lore,
about
sure,
representing them in a certain way. You know, it's just that enthusiasm comes through. And if I may pay you a compliment, Conan, that is what you're so good at too. When you talk to people on Platonic Reversal, every person you interview, it feels very handpicked, and you're just such a fan of music that really comes through. I always notice that, the enthusiasm.
Well, thank you, because I think that's the key to the show, and it's I don't have anyone on I'm not interested in. So you think that would
yeah, it's a good
I don't know why that
policy.
would be secret sauce, but yeah. Rockwell, Somebody's Watching Me, comes out in 1984.
I mean, we both know why it's successful. Is he like how is he related to Michael Jackson, or what's the connection there, dude?
Yeah, that's a good point. I actually don't remember.
It's a fun little
exactly
hook. Yeah, I don't know too much about the Rockwell lore, but I
think it's a Barry Gordy, maybe, that he's oh yeah, he's Barry Gordy's son. That's what it is. So there you go. Born on third base.
yeah. I mean, yeah, that's fine. I got some other. Are you still going down a list of records here, Conan, or you want me to
yeah, that's fine. Hit me with one. We can yeah, absolutely.
Well, we haven't touched the White Whale, Born in the USA, baby.
Exactly. Ronald Reagan's favorite song. Who only listened to the chorus. Yeah. Famously the Clear Mountain Pause, which is sort of like, wow, that is his signature move for producing was destroyed by digital recording. It's like, yeah, anyone can do that now. Pause. The Clear Mountain Pause. What are you talking about? No, but okay. So Springsteen, right? Yeah. Let's talk about Springsteen. Sure. This was again, talk about 80s defining albums. I mean, and talk about people literally listen to the chorus of a song and don't listen to any of the rest of it.
Yeah, that is funny. Well, so we covered this as well on the show.
That was pretty recent. That was a couple months ago. Yeah. Right?
I think it was over a year ago, because we did it for a 4th of July. It might have been 22 or might have been 21, to be honest. I'm not sure. It all blends together, Conan, as you know. But I am also a lifelong Springsteen fan. I love Springsteen. I love his earnestness, his songwriting, his sincerity, etc.
Hate that baseball song.
Now I hear you, but I'm here to tell you, I'm here to rep it to a certain extent. It's not as good as the 70s Springsteen, clearly. It has a lot of 80s cheese on it. But there is something one must respect about that album. Plays like a freaking greatest hits record. There were like 7 successful singles off that thing. And so while it has a strong sheen of cheese, I feel it must be respected on some level. And there's definitely some good tracks buried. There's some cheesy tracks. The other thing I wanted to point out
for Dancing in the Dark, featuring young Courtney Cox.
Love Dancing in the Dark. It's cheesy in all the best ways. That's my go-to karaoke song, by the way. And what I wanted to mention was that a lot of those songs were also recorded live, including the vocal take. I remember reading when we were doing the research for it that Born in the USA is a 100% live take, which is pretty wild for such a huge
that is
number one hit.
Yeah.
The other thing,
especially like the mix on that blows my mind. I'm like, wow, that's some bold aesthetic decisions.
What I also think is funny, just when you think about an artist's catalog, for anyone who knows, I think it's either came out right before or right after. It must have been right before. It was Nebraska, right? The stripped down acoustic Bruce Springsteen that in the 2000s, in the 21st century, hipsters have embraced at least that one, right? You know, it's dark, it's moody, but he was basically coming right off of those sessions and bringing them back to the band instead of just him with an acoustic guitar and going like, we should just take some of these exact same songs and put them in the band, and then like they get this. Like, the products could not be more different, and that was kind of the story of the song Born in the USA, that it was this dark, brooding, died in Vietnam kind of song, and then the band like really pops it up and makes it, you know, something I don't really want to listen to be fair, but you have to respect what it's accomplished.
You know what else popped up in there is the mix for the synthesizer. It's up really high, man. Like it's like that whole record is like
too high. It's too high. It's too high. I agree. Synthesize. See, the 80s, this is the problem. We've kind of started around it. This whole podcast is gated reverb snare and 80s synth. Just the production choices in the 80s were bad. They have not aged well. And It's shitty to say because I don't think it's necessarily the people with the 80s fault. I get it. You're in the studio in the 80s. You want to try the new thing. You want to stay current. You're Phil Collins or you're Bruce Springsteen or whoever you are, right? But that decade just doesn't sound good at all in many ways.
Yeah, I mean, well, it sounds specific to the time, right? That's what I'm talking about,
It
like
does.
things that become the sonic signatures, if you will, that are indicative of the time that they came out, and become cliches, and then become things that people reference now anyway. So that's
Yes. Well, this is what people
That's a
who
whole separate
aren't
story.
really steeped in deep listening don't understand. But I'm sure you're the same way, Conan. If you just played me
Sure.
an isolated clip of the snare from one of 5 decades, that pretty
Which
much
one
tells
is
the
from
whole
the 80s?
story.
I'm going to tell
Right.
you. I know exactly.
Yeah,
what
exactly.
it is.
Yeah.
Again, cocaine decision making. Absolutely, 100%
Yeah,
agree.
for sure.
100% relate. Yeah, the drum sounds in the 80s were just very specific to the time, and that goes across all genres. I mean, it's not like metal drumming was that's a specific thing as well. If you listen to an 80s metal record, like it's like I know exactly what era this came out in. You know. So that's a good one. Oh, hold on a second. Let's before we move on. Okay, here we go. Question for Rob. What's the opinion on the hose? Loyal? Not loyal? Explain and cite sources. This is from Dizzle. This is a recurring bit, and
I think they loyal. And my source for that would be my long-standing marriage, I guess.
There you go. There you go, Dizzle. Again, Dizzle asking the tough questions on this show. It's there you go. There you go. Yeah, Heartbeat City by the Cars comes out this year. Maybe my least favorite Cars record.
Yeah, that's how I felt too. I think there's so much more to like in the Cars catalog that's not
Yeah. There's for a band that could almost call their first record the Cars' greatest hits, and they could have.
Yeah, right.
It's kind of like, okay, what do you got on Heartbeat City? All right, so you got Magic, you got Drive.
Yeah, Drive's all right.
You got You Might Think.
That song bothers me, man. I mean, that was probably the first I ever heard of the Cars, watching MTV music videos. That's the one where he's buzzing around like a bumblebee, right?
Yeah,
but
right. More cocaine decisions.
Yeah, I don't know, man. That one gets under my skin in a weird way that a lot of pop songs don't. Like, there's nothing really wrong with it, but I just don't like it.
It's not they're not sending their best with that one. I think. Like I think that there's look. Drive. I'm glad Benjamin Orr wrote a song that like that wine moms can dance to at weddings. Great. I'm happy for everyone. But yeah, compared to if that was the only record they did, okay, fine, peace and love. But like look, man, these are the records before that Cook. So
yeah,
like there's
sure,
there's not much to say there as far as that goes. Smith self-titled.
I'm glad it exists. It's definitely not peak Smiths, but I like the Smiths. I'm not a Morrissey apologist, to be clear. He's a complete asshole and always has been.
Right.
But I dig the sound. They have an iconic sound. It's cool. Yeah, there's
Hand in Gloves on there.
Yeah,
that's a jam. Real round.
Well, it's the debut. I think there's something about debuts, and the sound does feel fully formed on this debut. So while I do not think it's the Smiths' best record ultimately, yes, I enjoy it.
This Charming Man is on the US LP and cassette release, was not on the UK release, but that's kind of like, that's a good tune. Again, real hard band to advocate for at this point. Talk about art versus artist. Like, Jesus Christ.
Sure. I mean, but the sound, let's go with what's on the tape, not how the human beings are, because there's a lot of assholes in this music business. Turns out, right?
Love the work, hate the jerk. There you go.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
You said you had a couple of things you wanted to get to.
Well, we could do like rapid fire. A couple of things I wanted to bring up that we haven't touched on. Is that all right?
We can do the show as long as we want. Yeah, no.
Okay. Well, I don't know how long you want to go, but Like a Virgin.
I got my hand on the wheel, man. We can go as long as we need.
I wanted to call out Like a Virgin.
Please. Like a Virgin. Okay, sure. Yeah.
Which also almost plays like a greatest hits record. I think
There's a lot on that one, man.
There's a lot. Material Girls on there, like Virgins on there. Obviously, it's a debut. It's a confident debut, man. It's a big. There's a lot going on there in pop music.
Yeah, that's their second album, right?
Because second album. My bad. Okay, but probably the one Madonna record you might want to listen to all the way through. Not that I'm a Madonna stan.
Is that in the Diary book? Is that on the?
That's a great question. We covered Like a Prayer, so that's definitely in there, and that was spotty. It had some moments.
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
Well, the reason I bring it up is because like Lucky Star, and Borderline and Burning Up are like three of my favorite songs. Those are the first record.
Borderline is so dope.
Borderline
is great. Okay, well, we somehow missed Double Nickels on the Dime, right? Isn't that a? 84?
Well, we mentioned Passing with Zen Arcade being the other double record, punk rock double record. For me, top 20 record for me.
Oh wow!
Even though there's like large swaths, I'm like, I just kind of disassociate with,
There's a whole side that they called chaff. that's
but I love it. And I love it because of the possibility of what it represents too. And the idea of like, this being a punk rock record that like, look, it's funky sometimes, it's aggressive. It's taking everything I love about like Gang of Four and Wire and mixing with Creedence Clearwater Revival sensibilities. Like it's uniquely American in feel. And it has a unique voice. I know you guys did this on your show, and this is one where I definitely
was yelling at us.
You may have, you may have wanted to have me on that show. You may not have, considering some of the stuff I was saying.
I think, oh my God, but here's, of course, you might pull up what I said on the show.
Have a Steely Dan cover. I forgot about that. Yeah, it totally had of the many things on that record. There's 1,000 songs in that record.
There's so many things going on that record, but just so you know how I really feel about it, I don't know what I said in the moment. It's not exactly my thing, but I agree with everything you said. I really appreciate the eclecticism. It's unique. It has a lot of charm. Just because it goes so many different directions, takes so many chances. You implied a conversation that we will have to have on a podcast some other time about double albums and how they're pretty much always not the right decision. I don't care how much I like your music. It just never really makes sense. But I get it. I respect it a lot, for sure. It's weird, and I always like it when weird wins the day.
Well, and it's crazy that the Jackass song is from Double Nickels.
Totally.
And that was specifically the only reason that was even allowed to be on there is because they needed money for what's it, D-Boon's dad's. I can't remember exactly, but there was some medical need to like raise money for a medical procedure, and it's actually kind of a heartwarming story. The Minutemen documentary I highly recommend, by the way.
Okay. I know. I did watch that. Yeah, Going Econo, right?
Yeah, Jam Econo. Yeah,
Jam Econo. Yeah.
I can't remember. It's been too long, but basically they were. They're coming from that perspective of like we have our own built world. We're not trying to play in the mainstream. We wouldn't want to be there anyway at that time, but they needed money for medical procedures. That's really what it comes down to. So,
yeah, fair enough.
I love Double Nickels on the Dime. Would it be a stronger record if you dropped a bunch of the songs? Oh, assuredly, but I still love it. I listen to the whole thing all the way through all the time personally. So
fair enough. I have respect. I certainly wouldn't put it that high, but we did.
You missed it. Like we talked at length about it before that. The only thing we didn't mention was Glory Days on that record, which I specifically point out because there's a lot of people these days that have like a Glory Days mentality. But maybe that's just opening Facebook and just seeing people bitching about being old, which just makes me crazy. I'm like, I close it immediately. I'm like,
well, you're talking about a boomer mentality. I don't know. Are you assigning maybe
just
too much meaning to it?
Well, people, because the idea is like, okay, this is it's meant to be a poignant song about looking back on the past.
Sure.
And
it succeeds handily, by the way,
which it is definitely successful at, right? And then looking back and be like, look, it never got that maybe that's as good as it got, or like maybe this person, the narrator, never really got a chance, and I was getting a haircut and I missed it. Okay, well that's fine. You can roll back the tape, and I like the song, actually. I do like the song, but I think it's indicative of something that that we're too locked into now, which is the nostalgia industrial complex, right? And I think it's a sharper song than that movement, for sure. And the fact that, like, you know, I think even with there's a video for it, right? And like then it's like the narrator never got to play the baseball or whatever, and then like the kid's playing the baseball, and maybe he's gonna be good at it, but it doesn't matter, they're having a good time. And like it's like, all right, well that's kind of a more well-rounded story rather than just like, boy, wasn't stuff better in high school? No, maybe it was for you, but like for a lot of us, it fucking wasn't.
Okay, but I've always sensed that there's definitely, in my opinion and my knowledge of Springsteen, there's a tongue-in-cheek about the narrator of like, this guy's kind of a washed up piece of shit, and that's part of why he's idolizing it. And yes, it's a universal feeling. And my story about Glory Days is, I do think it's an overall well-written, crafted pop song, 145 kind of thing. It is drawn down a little bit by 80s production, and that video is kind of ridiculous. But when I was absurd. I just remember when I was first listening to this stuff in the late 90s, when I was a teenager, you know, I felt a certain way about it. It didn't really ping me. But then I remember I saw Bruce Springsteen when I was about 31. And it was at the Shark Tank in San Jose, and he played Glory Days like at a pivotal moment. And I just had this like feeling of poignancy about it. I was like, fuck, I am old. That like it happened. Like, I'm on the other side of it now. It was just like just for a moment, I let myself feel emotion about the song, you know? But no, but the point is, I don't think he's speaking from his perspective in that case. That's just not the sense I get.
I think you're right. I think it's allegorical. And I think it works in the fact that the lack of specificity in the song still makes it pop later on, right? Like, and it's something where there is a lot of there's something to be said for that, like making something that's purposefully of the time, but also timeless in its way, without trying too hard to make it timeless, which usually makes it about nothing.
Can we also say, sorry, you pulled my string about Bruce Springsteen now. So we Born in the USA as a song gets all the credit for being a Trojan horse of anti-war sentiment, right? But absolutely. I think he also deserves credit for Dancing in the Dark, a song about casual fucking. Yeah, that's like packaged like a radio single, and doesn't, you know, he found a clever way around that. It's about hookup culture and the earnest, sad, lonely boy going like, well, maybe this hookup could turn into a real relationship. What do you think, lady? And like feeling trepidatious about it. That's what it's about,
right? And it sounds like he's going out dancing. No, man. Well, maybe that's how it'll start. I also want to change my clothes, my hair, my face. Great line.
Yeah, I agree.
That's like, I mean, like whatever. That dude's, he's like one of the guys that has like a million of those lines in like every album. But like, doff of the cap.
Okay, great. Glad to hear you say it. Glad we cleared that up.
No, I look. Bruce Springsteen is a fraught topic, and unfortunately, it's one of those things that, again, the Dancing in the Dark is on my fuck rotation.
Yeah, as well it should be.
Good on you, Dizzle. Good on you. I enjoy Bruce Springsteen, and I think you might agree, Rob. It is sometimes difficult and inscrutable to deal with Bruce Springsteen fans.
Yeah,
because the level of fandom is so intense that it's like
it's too much. You don't need to follow.
It's like dealing with people obsessed with, right? It's like dealing with people obsessed with like The Fall or something, where it's like, Jesus Christ, I just want to listen to the music. I don't need to hear about like every piece of banal minutia.
Well, dude, you're allowed to like more than one band. Like it wasn't supposed to be. You just devote all your musical love to one thing. That's silly,
right?
Can we? I have a note here, Conan, because we haven't talked too much about things we don't like. But I was perusing. Oh, okay. It's coming up for you. Okay.
Lay it on.
I was perusing some 1984 playlists to try to figure out what was popular at the time, and I know the pop hits aren't always what you're looking to talk about. But All She Wants to Do Is Dance came out in 1984, and that is a fucking war crime. All right, and in fact, I think. The Don Henley song I'm referring to now.
Don Henley song. Of course, it's I'm trying to remember what the name of the record is, but it's
from inception to execution, every inch of it. If you were just to play the first 3 seconds of the song, you would be disgusted. I assure you.
The record it's on, it was released as a single in 84, so it counts. But the record is Building the Perfect Beast is the name of the record.
Dude.
So that's the one that's got Boys of Summer, right?
I said Boys of Summer is cool. Oh, so the record came out in 83, but the single was released in 84. Okay. Sure. It's a little bit of a cheat, but when I saw that on a list, I got so upset. That song is like an airborne toxic event that wafts over.
It's trash from the trash can.
The landscape of 1984, infecting other studios, other genres. Everything in its wake is sullied.
Patti Smythe of Scandal is backing vocals to that. And the singer of the Motels too. And that trash song.
I just hate it so much. I don't know if there's a song I could hate more than All She Wants to Do Is Dance.
It's not bad. It's not. No, I was gonna say it's not. That's not bad. It's not good. It's not
definitely not good.
I'll give it up for Boys of Summer. Boys of Summer is like that. That's
Boys
a
of
good
Summer.
song. I don't even like Don Henley, but like that's a good song. I'm sorry.
You know that Mike Campbell, Tom Petty's guitar player, wrote Boys of Summer.
Oh, I did not know that, but I know very well who Mike Campbell is. I'm a huge fan of that dude. That guy's awesome.
Yeah, and then he gave it to Tom Petty, and Tom's like, nah.
Wow.
It goes to Henley.
Wow. Yeah, it was a huge hit for him too, I think, if I remember.
Yeah, no, it's a good song.
I was like, okay. How there's a record by a little someone called Tina Turner. Private Dancer. Have you heard of this one, Rob?
Yes. Also, I had never heard it before we covered it. What you
want me to do?
We covered it on 1001, and
I remember.
Actually, I've gotten a fair amount of hate mail about this one. You always write us, Conan, about how we treat indie records, but people were mad about us making fun of Tina Turner. Again, in my rose-colored glasses memory, it's actually kind of a fun record. I think the song "Private Dancer" is like perfect guilty pleasure. I'm rolling up the windows at the stoplight, but I'm jamming it for sure. Steel Claw is a ripper on here. I mean, it's hell, but it's fun, and just again the accomplishment of somebody, this like 40-plus-year-old woman having a career resurgence at that
You're
point.
a big comeback, right? Yeah, absolutely.
So, love and respect.
What's love got to do with it? Got to do with it.
I don't love that one. I love the title track better, which is a Mark Knopfler song, because I'm a big
that is a Mark Knopfler who wrote that one. No,
yeah,
Private Dancer rocks, man.
Yeah, and I think all of Dire Straits plays on the song, maybe except Mark, because they'd even recorded it and rejected it for one of their records, and then it made its way to Tina Turner. Yeah,
there's a David Bowie cover on that record too, of the song 1984, which came out on Diamond Dogs, which came out in 1974.
Right. Well, I know the story behind that though. Do you know this? Because Diamond Dogs was originally conceived as a stage production musical of George Orwell's 1984, but then Bowie couldn't get the rights to it, and he got mired in that, and so he just ended up pushing it out as Diamond Dogs, but some of those songs that were kind of based on elements of the book remained.
That is interesting.
I like Diamond Dogs. Diamond Dogs has grown on me more.
Diamond Dogs rocks. Yeah, I have nothing against Diamond Dogs. I think Diamond Dogs is great. I think David Bowie's another one that like there's wide swaths of like, well, that was unfortunate, but I don't have to listen to that. But it far fewer than some.
Well, when you're around that long, it must be. But I should probably mention, now I'm looking at the track list of Private Dancer again. There are a couple completely unnecessary covers on here. She didn't need to do Help.
That's right. I forgot about that.
She didn't need to do Let's Stay Together. But I do think there's a couple worthy things on here. The singles, like I said, Private Dancer. Steel Claw is a secret jam.
But then also like think about where they're coming from. That like, some of those Proud Mary, like one of her biggest hits cover.
Sure.
Right,
she wasn't really known as a songwriter, so she was always going to be taking songs from other people and interpreting them, and then that's fine.
She was a personality, she was a star, and she was a talent, but she was it was the situation where it's like no Bush City Limits, right? I mean, like it goes all the way back. But it is interesting that you don't hear of many women artists that have like a huge comeback like that. That was sort of again era defining. Like she was on the freaking soda commercials, and she's in like what the freaking Thunderdome.
I
She
think,
was,
yeah,
you
because I
know?
think Thunderdome happened right around the same time as this record. It might have helped the record get across because Thunderdome might have been like a surprising hit. I don't remember all the details. Yeah, see, this guy knows about Steel Claw, dude.
Steel
Steel Claw
Claw.
rocks.
Did she write Nutbush City Limits? Am I wrong about that? Okay, for some reason I thought okay. Well, we regret that.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, actually, yeah, that sounds right because I remember when we listened to it for the research for this, I was like, oh, I know it from Live Bullet. I did think it was a Bob Seger song,
I thought it was a Bob Seger song as well.
but she's from Nutbush. I think that's what it is.
Semi-autobiographical song written by Tina Turner. I regret the
Yeah,
error.
she's from a place called Nutbush. That's right. Yeah.
My bad, because I knew the Bob Seger version first, so I wrongly assumed that's okay. Well, put some respect on Tina's name.
What was Bob Seger doing around this time? Was this Against the Wind era?
Oh God,
Must
probably.
have
Let's
been,
see.
right?
Yeah.
Not his best work, certainly, but
no. Let's take a look. I'm actually curious. That's got to be.
I don't know.
It's pre Like a Rock, because Like a Rock was his big comeback hit, but that was in every truck commercial ever, by the way. But that's 86.
Okay.
So
yeah, I don't think he had a record in 84, according to Spotify, but
yeah, I'm looking. Yeah, yeah. So Like a Rock, 86. The Distance was 82. And yeah, kind of nothing.
I was just messing around, looking at different records that came out, and I saw that the band Whitesnake, their album from 1984, is lovingly titled "Slide It In." Now, I didn't listen, nor should you. But
Whitesnake.
But I just think the title tells you a lot about the zeitgeist.
Yeah. That's where it was at. Well, that is to a certain degree. That's a what hast thou Roth Van Halen? As much as I adore them, that there's a lot of that hair metal. So I try to stay away from that topic because I personally find it mostly annoying. And then the next thing you know, you're in a conversation about what are the best hair metal bands, and I want to commit harakiri. But that's me.
Dr. Feelgood was the first music purchase I ever made on my own, Conan.
I think I remember you saying that. Yeah, and that's fine. That's fine. I mean, you could do worse, right?
I'm just admitting it. And I think I bought Paula Abdul's Forever Your Girl at the same moment, both on cassette tape, of course, in like 1990.
Echo and the Bunnymen, Ocean Rain.
Oh, yeah, that's a pretty good one. I haven't gone too deep. That has Killing Moon on it, right?
I believe so. I'm real-time fact checking that right now.
Yeah, no, that's a good one.
Yeah, Killing Moon. Yep. That's it's like they're sort of like those guys sort of band for people not like in that genre, but I mean, pretty important to the era if you stop and think.
Sure.
About it.
Yeah. Okay. I'll take it.
I believe you. Frankie Goes to Hollywood. Yeah.
So are we attempting to answer the question at the top? Is that important? Do we give conclusive thoughts at some point, or are we just putting it all out there?
I want to kind of rapid fire a couple of these ones we missed because people get really mad.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, let's do it.
REM Reckoning. That's a interesting second record by REM. So they were still more of a rockish entity. This is before the That's Me in the Corner, like that era.
Sure. I think I know the first one's called Document, or no? What's the first one called? Murmur. They're not really one of my bands, to be honest, but I know they Murmur is the first one.
Murmur, and then Fables of Reconstruction after that.
Yeah, I've listened to Murmur. I think I've listened to Green, and of course I've heard the super popular stuff that came after Losing My Religion. But yeah, they're not really my thing, but I respect them.
Hair metal is all cocaine and overdrive with a cup of rapey lyrics. Bold statement, Dizzle. Bold statement.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like they took the wrong lessons from the 70s with hair metal, but
post-punk when REM was post-punk. Yeah, this was more like, this is when because I mean, crazily enough, REM went out with the Minutemen. They took Minutemen out on tour, which seems crazy until you listen to those earlier records. Like, oh no, like you kind of see it to a certain degree. Like it makes sense. They're not like super far afield.
It's a pretty wide-ranging genre to script, though, right? Post-punk.
Yes, that's one of the things I like about it.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. I'm okay with that.
Tooth and Nail by Dokken comes out
Oh,
in 84.
okay. I'm not a Dokken guy. And in fact, Dokken has been a punchline amongst my friends for a long time. They're just like, it's just a stand-in for a bad band. Now that's said with
Yeah.
almost no knowledge of them. But then something happened. I've been on a real practice kick with my guitar playing over the last couple of years, like just a more
Okay.
intensity and metronome stuff and trying to get fast. And at some point I was telling a guy, an acquaintance about it. He goes, "Oh, you got to listen to Dokken Tooth and Nail, like specifically the song Tooth and Nail."
Okay,
And it kind of rocks. And so I'm somewhat rescinding it. They're still cheesy, but
yeah, like I mean, look, no one's ever gonna try to go street cred with Dokken. Sorry, but it's not really a thing that you can do. Not a circle I want to be in. That's for sure.
But the 80s, that I will say that some
That's the one that's just got like it
strains-
looks like Spinal Tap. It's got like a claw coming out towards the logo.
right.
Like
It's definitely part of what Spinal Tap are making fun of, right?
it's a
No, but I mean, I think the
tap.
guitar playing in a lot of those 80s metal bands was and influenced by Eddie Van Halen, obviously, right? The technique was
sure.
at a high point in a way that it just wasn't in the 60s and 70s. You can't, first of all, you can't practice your way to sounding like Jimi Hendrix. I mean, for better or
Right.
worse, right? He wasn't really
Yeah,
a
you're right.
technique guy. He was a feel guy, and he's awesome, obviously. Same with Jimmy Page and the 70s luminaries. But by the time the 80s came around, I think it became very technique oriented. And that's how you got these like Steve Vais and Satriani's and stuff like that. And it's really laying down the foundation of how you're going to be as technically proficient as possible. So there's something kind of cool about that. It's not really my style of playing, but I dig it.
Sean's right. This is Spinal Tap actually came out in 1984. So that's crazy. This is happening, and like the thing that lampoons like all of that, as well as like Zeppelin and like all of the the many classic rock bands, comes out and invents the mockumentary. Frankly.
It's cliche to say it, but it really doesn't get much better than that movie. Not just in terms of as a comedy movie generally, and because it invented a genre, like you said, but also it does such a good job outlining what being in a band is kind of like. You know what I mean? It's one of the most, like, what are the other pieces of art you think of, Conan, that have properly described even one aspect of what it is like to be in this world, deep in this world? High Fidelity might be an example of a pretty good one, right? Or
that's the record store version. Yeah. But
the record,
I mean, when we did, so there was a Platonic Reversal anniversary show. I don't remember what the anniversary was, but I also did as a crossover with the movie show on Movie Night Extravaganza. And we had Jerry Casale of Devo on, Brian from Man or Astroman, and Chris Murphy of Sloan on. And what I loved about having that panel is that all these people from these wildly different sounding bands that like from like different eras, if you will, even though they all still continue to work, of course.
Yeah.
They all vibed with Spinal Tap and found things to love, and like it was a universal defining thing, right? Because everybody, whether it's something you experienced or something that you're like, wow, that's absurd, and like I realized that in my post 1991, the year punk broke, like the excess of that is like hilarious. Again, it embodies and it somehow celebrates and completely eviscerates the form at the same time.
100%. It gets something so universally right about what it means to be in a band. It's great.
Right. And hey, that's great. That's killer stuff. Billy Ocean comes out in 1984. Son of Caribbean Queen.
Yes.
which is it's got a paren. It's No More Love on the Run. I didn't even know that.
I did not know that either.
Why did they feel the need to include that? That's some Spinal Tap errors. I mean, no More Love on the Run. No, people it's just Caribbean Queen. That's all people care about for Billy Ocean. What is he? British Trinidad. Billy Ocean.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah. Well, the song was initially released as European Queen, but it didn't achieve success. And so the record company suggested that they changed it. And they Caribbean Queen or African Queen. So that's
wow, it's funny that none of those words you just mentioned actually fit in the melody correctly.
Not at all. It only works like the onomatopoeia of Caribbean is the only reason that works.
Yeah. I mean, even that is a
Yeah.
mispronunciation of the word Caribbean. I agree that's the best one, but none of all
No,
of them seem a little shoehorned in, right?
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, this is so a quote from Billy Ocean. The song was released in Europe as European Queen, and nobody was interested in it. When we changed the name to Caribbean Queen and released in the US, it took off and started snowballing. They started playing it in Europe. I guess it had more appeal as Caribbean Queen because Europe conjures up a vision of rain and snow and cold. But Caribbean sounds like sunshine and blue skies. It's much more exotic.
I want to know more about this story. I'm going to dig in after the show because are you saying that he recorded the entire thing and it released it didn't work, and then
It
they just
didn't work.
come back into the vocal booth? We just need one word.
We're gonna change a word. We're gonna change one word. Yeah,
printing it again. We don't need to change the mix. None of it. That's hilarious.
I did. So this is Lula Fortune. Conan called Almost Famous a war crime against musicians on This Is Revolution a while back. I did, and I stand by my assessment. Like it poisoned an entire generation of people thinking that that's the only way that a band can be, and that's my problem with it.
Oh, you know,
I don't think that's a bad movie. I just think it poisoned the zeitgeist.
I disagree. I'd have to go watch it again, but I disagree in the sense that what I think that movie is about is the fan experience, and it felt very true to the fan experience.
I understood, but the shrapnel effect of again bands just being temporarily embarrassed superstars versus just working for the sake of being a band and liking to play music and so on. It changed. There has not been any media still to this day that while you'll see it in comedy, you'll see working comedians that are.
A great movie about a working band. I hear you. I do. No, that's kind of what I was trying to say about the Spinal Tap thing.
Green Room, maybe. I don't know. That doesn't end well.
There does still seem to be a lot of meat on that bone for script writers, etc. So yeah.
And there's still time. There's still time to get over there. In the comments, Sade did put out a Diamond Life at this time.
Okay. What's on that? The first Sade record?
Oh, hey, look at this. It's my sensible host. Did you hear the Sade single?
I just got on. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. There he is, host of the show.
I just got on for the Sade. I was enjoying it till you guys started shitting on hair metal.
I knew
I said Dokken was great, dude. What are you talking about?
If there's one thing that I don't take lightly in my life is the shitting on of one of my favorite genres of music, which is hair metal. Even though I'm wearing this shirt right now.
So you're here to rep "Slide It In" by Whitesnake. Is that my understanding?
So I made a playlist, mildly tongue in cheek, but I did the first song on it is the original "Fool for Your Loving" by Whitesnake from like 81, 82. So I actually go back and listen to the before Phil Collins years of Def Leppard, On Through the Night. I do appreciate some of the hair stuff, maybe because I'm too analytical about it. When we get on these shows, Professor Teray Reed and I had like a 30-minute diversion on a Ben Burgess show about which Dokken album was the more proficient guitar-wise.
Jason, I actually had a George Lynch signature Screamin' Demon pickup in my guitar and replicator.
I had the George Lynch signature model with the dragon and shit and the snake and the knife and all that. I had one of those ESPs, but I fixed the bridge and made it all metal.
Yeah, exactly.
But I was really stoked to do this show because 84 is kind of a massive year and we're all around the same age. So this is also a year for us where we're hearing music through MTV and radio and starting to get beyond what our parents like. So for the Princes, this was my first time hearing Sade. Even as a young boy, I was like, I don't know what this light-skinned woman has done to me, but it is
smooth operator. Yeah, I mean, huge.
Yeah. Tina Turner's massive. Like you said, Bruce Springsteen was unavoidable. You guys haven't even touched on Huey Lewis yet.
Oh, Sports came out in 83, right? But he was still releasing singles in 84?
maybe it was singles in '84. Then I'm so sorry. I thought that was '84. But anyway,
is-
I was going to bring it up near the end, but yeah.
It feels like the year that defines the '80s sound in all these genres. Like you touched on Run-DMC. That's the record that kind of legitimizes hip hop as this real art form. So no, I'm enjoying it. I finally got through the border. It was 2.5 hours to go 1 mile.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, good times. So yeah, I'm enjoying it. I will be doing a 1984 metal and punk only edition and playlist for the 8 people that watch this show that are metal and punk enthusiasts.
But Jason, like we brought up like double nickels on the dime, Zen Arcade. Like we've not like staying away from punk rock. Like I'm the one always advocate to bring that in. It's just, is it going to be like what? Like,
oh no, we're
different...
gonna go like hardcore, just stupid punk stuff that like 8 people know. Dumbass industrial releases that 7 people know. Get into the
My War comes out. My Black Flag, My War comes out in 1984. That arguably
that's my
like
favorite Black Flag record. That is my favorite Black Flag record. Ever.
Yeah, I kind of bristle with the fact of the necessity for a second show, but you know, it's your show, like whatever. It's fine. You can do whatever you want. I think we've been pretty even-handed.
I felt bad. First of all, I was really stoked to talk to Rob about this stuff and talk to him, like you said, in a light where you don't have to be mean about a record, right? Sure. But you know why I can't go, and it's a bitch, and I'm really fucking bummed about it. And another thing that we do, Rob, on these shows is we have a call-in. So we let people call in and
well, here you are.
What we fucking forgot.
So here, I didn't have to do anything. You just showed up. It was great.
so I wasn't able to do that. So I have to redeem myself. Conan and Rob are doing an amazing job. As David said, this is a hard show to watch because you're just going to go run and listen to all these songs.
You want to go listen to the record. Yeah.
So your guys are doing an amazing job. And of course, I do have a little time once I get to my destination. I will be putting together the 1984 regular show playlist, and then I'll be putting together the 1984 metal playlist as well. So it'll be a lot of fun. I'm enjoying doing that. And once again, Conan, if I was ever going to do this thing with anybody, you are the best person to do this with. So.
It makes so much sense. It's almost like, why didn't we think of this years ago, frankly? By the way, Huey Lewis update. It did come out in September 1983, but it charted in 1984. So it showed up on the Billboard 200 in June 30th, 1984. Charted for 160 weeks.
Yeah.
Sports. He was so unavoidable. Bay Area dude. So he was kind of everywhere when I was growing up. But yeah, I'm going to let you guys go because I'm driving in California and it's worse than driving in Mexico.
Well, it's great of you to call in for your own show. And of course, it's lovely to hear from you, Jason. Again, as I mentioned, usually hosted by Jason Myles and Conan Neutron, now with less Jason Myles and more Conan Neutron. But now we got more Jason Myles to add to that. So there you go.
Well, it's also Conan and I when I first did this, I was floated the idea to Conan. I was like, let's do this and start bringing in people from also different genres of music as well to have these conversations with us. Because it's always fun to hear people that were there, hear another person like Conan and I that's done it at a certain level. So you guys are killing it.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, sir.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's been great.
Appreciate the vote of confidence.
Yeah.
It's like having your supervisor like come in and check up on you. Hey, you're doing a great job.
Right. Right.
So that sports record, since I got it up on the screen, you got Heart of Rock and Roll, you got I Want a New Drug, If This Is It, like again, whatever anybody thinks of Huey Lewis in the News, they were dominant in the culture.
Yeah, they're not really my thing, but yeah, I hear you. Is the I Want a New Drug is the one that Ray Parker Jr. may have ripped off, right?
For Ghostbusters, yeah.
Yes.
And it was eventually settled out of court for an undisclosed sum.
Yes. And when did the Ghostbusters soundtrack album also? When did that come out?
That came
out 1984.
1984. Yeah. So
Bustin' makes me feel good, Conan. Damn.
Bustin'. My best review of the I haven't even seen it yet, but the new Ghostbusters movie is Bustin' makes me feel bad. I was like, ooh, that's some shark sandwich level.
Yeah. Stop. He's already dead. Yeah.
Maybe it's great. I haven't seen it yet. They settled out of court. Fun factoid on I can't believe I'm saying this. Fun factoid on Huey Lewis. He had a loose association with Thin Lizzy from his old band Clover, and is actually on Live and Dangerous playing.
I knew that. Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, he plays on harmonica on like one track or two tracks or something on Live and Dangerous. Well, also that band Clover plays on the first Elvis Costello record, except Huey Lewis.
My Aim is True. Yes,
didn't get invited to the session, but everyone else in the band,
everyone else but Huey Lewis is on there. Yeah, isn't that wild? Yeah. It's all connected, people. Anyway,
yeah.
So we're gonna start closing it down here. Let's see. I feel like there's some obvious ones we didn't get to. Let me check one of them right now to make sure that I'm not wrong. I mean, My War, Black Flag. I know you're not a punk guy, Rob, but that's the Black Flag record where they went slow. Like hardcore was getting faster and faster, and they went slow. And so that was very influential to a lot of it, like Godflesh and Melvins and things along those lines. That's like, oh wow, that's cool. Like that's all these idiots are joining this punk rock world, and they're going faster and faster, and these guys are going slow suddenly.
Fair enough.
And it sounds freaking obvious in 2024, but at the time it was like, what are they doing? You know, what are we gonna say, Rob?
Can I mention another thing I hate, which is the Depeche Mode song "People Are People." I'm certainly not a big Depeche Mode fan anyway. It's not really my genre, but that song makes me want to break the radio when I hear it. I think it's so it's a hate song. I take it back. I don't break the radio. I listen to it. I turn it up because I want to feel the hate flow through me like Emperor Palpatine, you
know? So, okay. People Are People versus the freaking Don Henley song.
Don Henley's worse, but this, you know, as much as I know I've established myself as a complainer, as a curmudgeon, if you will, but the truth is I love most things. I want to like most things, but there are a few. There's like a top 10 of things that really grind my gears. Now, as I said, when they come on the radio, I actually want to listen to them more. I do not turn them off. That's just a weird, maybe you're the same way, Conan, I don't know, but I want to revel in it, whatever that feeling is. It just so happens when I was looking over the tracks, these are two of those songs. I don't feel like there's a lot of them, but two of them happened in 1984.
Got it. Acknowledge. Wheels Are Turning, REO Speedwagon comes out in 1984.
Yeah.
Featuring I Just Can't Fight This Feeling Anymore, which is like on every like, you know, K-Tel compilation, like whatever. That's it, dating myself just saying that, but like, you know, infomercial of like trying to sell a compilation. And like there's a montage of the songs.
Yeah, I'm sure I know some of those Speedwagon songs. It's definitely not my genre either. My main recollection.
It's their 11th studio album, by the way.
Probably too long for a band like that to have gone on. But there's a little fun YouTube video for the audience to look up. There used to be this show called Midnight Special, Bert Sugarman's Midnight Special. Is that what it's called?
Right. Yeah, it was based off the Creedence song Midnight Special, I think, if I remember correctly. But,
yeah, and it's just this, and you can find all these videos online, right? But it was a late night show where bands would come on, and so there's all these great performances of 70s bands. Anyway, there's an REO Speedwagon one, and I don't know exactly what song they're playing or what era, but all I know is that the cameraman just goes tight on the lead singer who's playing the piano, and the coke sweat is just pouring off of his face. Like, it is not a good look.
Oh, that's awesome. Somewhat similar vein, Hall & Oates' Big Bam Boom, 1984.
Haven't really gotten the time to dig into that one just yet, but wait, what's on that one?
Out of touch We're
Big
out of
hits.
touch. That's got that one.
They're definitely a hit band for me, so I can't say I know that one too well.
Yeah, I can't say I've really dug deep in the Hall & Oates discography, but that one definitely came out that year. Wanted to mention that. You got Cool in the Gang.
Oh, they're still making music? Yeah, I don't know.
Cool in the Gang with their 16th record. Yeah, absolutely. Released in 1984.
Yeah, I mean, more power to these guys who are hanging in. I think the 70s bands who hung in through the 80s, none of them came out unscathed, certainly, right? The decade just was brutal in many ways, but I was perhaps giving a salve to Jason, who just left. Scorpions, Rock You Like a Hurricane, also 84.
Oh, is that 84? Okay, I was actually going the Foreigner route. I can't believe I just said that.
I don't think Foreigner was doing anything good at this time, were they?
Agent Provocateur is which quite a title, but I want to know what love is.
Oh, that's this. Oh, okay, yeah.
Want you to know.
See, I'm kind of a Foreigner just for the 70s Foreigner. I think Jukebox Hero rocks me so hard, you know.
But that one guitar,
right? I know it sounds like it's explode. Like, how does a human sing that loud, that high? Yeah,
but it kept on rocking. Oh, did he? Good. I'm glad we got the update. Thank you.
But I like that song. I'll rep that song. Scorpions are okay, right? They're the German band who made it big. Rock You Like a Hurricane. I had happenstance to learn it not too long ago, and it was the first time I really read the lyrics, and they're fucking terrible.
They're not great. It's not great, folks.
It's pretty rapey. Yeah.
We would be radically disingenuous to not mention that "Stay Hungry" by Twisted Sister came out in 84.
Oof. You gonna tell me what's on that one?
We're Not Gonna Take It.
Okay. Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's also got I Wanna Rock. Which is, you know, so what I like about that, it tells you what they're not going to do and tells you what they are going to do.
Yeah, it's a whole manifesto in 2 songs.
Things we will not do. Take it. Things we will do.
One single, 145 is you flip it over and you get the whole picture.
Exactly. Well, what was Ramones songs were all like, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that, et cetera, et cetera. And then it was like, what's the first positive song they did? Now I want to sniff some glue. So there you go.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I mean that was the third record by Twisted Sister. There's actually a great, I can't believe I'm saying this. There's a great documentary about Twisted Sister.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And it's great because it shows only their early days, only their build up, like being a regional touring band, working, playing these venues, basically building like a DIY tour circuit and playing to all their fans and plying their trade and just being a working band. And it stops right when they make the big record and get famous, which I think which is actually really freaking cool. And honestly, can't say I'm a huge Twisted Sister fan. I'm not a hater, but I can't say that I'm a huge Twisted Sister fan, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great.
All right, I'll look that one up. Yeah, he was also Dee Snider was also involved in that Parents Council lawsuit stuff.
That's right. Yeah, there's and Sean's right. It totally dominated MTV in 1984. Twisted Sister was like everywhere.
Now I mostly remember Dee Snider from his cameo in Pee-wee's Big Adventure, but.
You know what? Mark's right. It was actually originally Carbona, but Carbona was a brand name, and they got mad about it, so they had to change it to Glue. Yeah,
nice.
And so that's why then they wrote the song "Carbona Not Glue," which is pretty great. This is what Ramones we're talking about now. Yeah. By the way, Dee Snider, maybe one of those hideous men alive, and so props to him for deciding to go full glam with it and cool. You look like a weird monster. You look like what Republicans think trans people look like. Just to be clear, but.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, I mean, look, say what you will, We're Not Gonna Take It was that was a gigantic song. And as far as songs that literally talk about your intention to rock, I Want to Rock is pretty good,
Yeah,
thank you.
Okay, yeah,
they want to rock, as it turns out. Rob, anything else you want to get to before we start closing this down?
I think I covered all the big ones for me. Just as I was looking around on the internet, I noticed that Leonard Cohen's "Hallelujah" original track was released in
Oh.
'84. That seems semi noteworthy, but yeah, I think
Not
we hit
even
all
in
the.
my top 10 of Leonard Cohen songs, by the way.
Yeah, I
do
agree
like
with you. I agree with you, but I thought it was worth mentioning. No, I think we hit all the big ones here.
Oh, there's a Queen record that came out. Oh yeah, the one with Radio Gaga. Okay, yeah, that one's all right.
It's not their best work.
I want to break free.
Yeah, that's fine, but
Yeah. Hammer to Fall. There's a few good tunes on it. Even bad Queen records, which god damn, that's got to be like over 10. Oh, that was their 11th studio album. The Works.
good on them. Good on anyone who could stay in a band that long. It is impressive. I'm serious.
It is a lot.
It's hard enough to get through making one record with a band.
Unforgettable Fire, U2 comes out that year too. We should definitely mention that.
I saw that one, but it feels like a little. I'm not a U2 fan. I know you're probably not either. I mean, they're fine. They deserve lots of credit for eking out a sound. It's a unique sound. It's very identifiable. But I looked at the track list. This has "Pride in the Name of Love" on it.
In the name of love.
To me, though, the better songs in that exact same genre, because they get, I think, fairly complained about because their songs sound very similar. Sunday Bloody Sunday is better than Pride.
Oh, Sunday Bloody Sunday rocks. I mean, that sounds like it could be like a Gang of Four riff. I mean, that's
what I'm saying. They have significantly better songs in that genre, and I'm not even the biggest fan. So I feel like it's a little bit of a bump in the road for them.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason they're coming out as an also ran at the end of the episode, but like, whatever. Lots of folks like the U2. And it was notable that "In the Name of Love" song was.
You got to respect what they've accomplished. It's instantly recognizable sound, and very few bands were able to accomplish that in life.
That's true. And Charles is correct. That "Unforgettable Fire" was produced by Eno and Lanois. So Daniel Lanois,
two titans. Yeah, that's crazy. Yep. That must have been probably early in Lanois' career because he was probably an apprentice to Eno or something, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is good. I will rock. Please don't stop me from rocking. Yes, that's a follow up of the next Twisted Sister record. Rob, before we just running out with the plugs and everything, let's answer the question: was 1984 the greatest year of music? What do you think? What are your thoughts?
Fuck no, Conan. Come on. I mean, listen, there was some great stuff. I do agree to a certain extent with what Jason came on and said, that there were a lot of decade-defining sounds released, and there were definitely plenty of good material here. But to my mind, this was not a great era for rock and roll, generally speaking. That's a subjective opinion, obviously. I think we've highlighted why. And so, no, I can't in good conscience say that 1984 is the best year for rock and roll.
But it was the year that Corey Hart came out with Sunglasses at Night.
You know what? I changed my vote. You're right. You're totally right.
He wears his sunglasses at night, people. Like, he's the rebel. He doesn't do what the man tells him to do. I think it's Dizzle coming in. Here's more money. Tell Jason the hair metal is terrible. Scoff forever.
It's good. Yeah.
There's a lot of, so I think we got into, I made a special point of touching on the punk rock. What we didn't mention was Meat Puppets too, by the way, which is honestly one of the weirdest and coolest punk rock, post-punk records ever, because that's like they went from being like a country band to being like, oh no, now like they're not doing this revved up punk rock stuff. They're doing, like, they slowed it down, and like they're integrating these like weird Southwestern vibey things, and became the Meat Puppets that people think of that influenced Nirvana and things along those lines. So credit to Meat Puppets too. But I think we hit almost every, replacements. We got Hüsker Dü, we got Minutemen. They're all operating peak of their game. They're influencing many other artists to come that would like define generations, things along those lines. So I think it is an important year because we also have Van Halen 1984. We talked about Black Flag My War, that being influential. We talked about like all of these. Born in the USA, Springsteen. Like when we think of quote unquote 80s music, we're thinking of like Private Dancer, Dancer for Money. Prince. Freaking Purple Rain, right? Boys of Summer, we mentioned with Don Henley. We didn't even get into Cyndi Lauper, Time After Time. You know, that's
I'm pretty sure that record came out in '83, but it was the singles kept.
It's the Huey Lewis thing where it charted. Yeah, it charted.
I know what you mean, and plenty of good music. But I think if you pulled any given year and really did a survey, you'd find some artists peaking, some artists planting seeds for great stuff to come in genres. Isn't that kind of always happening? So, but I hear what you're saying. There's definitely good material here.
So I think it's very much an important year in music. Look, it's the greatest year of music. I feel it's like a generational thing. I've always felt. By the way, Dusty has mentioned Swans at least 50 times in chat. Cop by Swans, talking about influential records. Actually, recently I had Norm Westberg from Swans on the show and talked about that. Huge record amongst that kind of aggressive post-punk industrial kind of world. But that comes back to my thesis statement, which is I feel it's an important year for sure. But is it the greatest year? It's an arbitrary designation. Who's the greatest generation? Are you kidding me? What does that even mean?
Yeah. I ask you, Dusty 48, what other show could you be listening to where you brought up an obscure record like that and the host Conan says, I just had that guy on my podcast doing a 3-hour deep dive. You need to give this man your money. Buy his merch. Subscribe to his Patreon. Please, this guy works. I can't believe you're doing this morning, Conan. Jeez, I didn't know you had this many jobs.
I look, the whole pitch for this was that I just get to hang out and like vibe, and then I was like, oh, I'm hosting it, huh? All right, fine.
That's always how it happens.
But this is, I would do this for free. Like this is like enjoyable.
No, it's a lot of fun. I agree. I kid.
Get some shout out for the Household Gods record. Thank you very much, DV. Appreciate that. The Household Gods record. It's
nice.
Very proud of that one. So I think it's an important year in music. Is it the best year in music? I told Jason like when he's made these, I was like, really? We're doing the clickbait thing? And of course, because like, no, it was this or yes, blah blah blah, and like that's the internet. That's where we're at. But
I think the real answer is that we need to get more scientific and mathematical about it. So I've prepared a spreadsheet presentation for you, Conan, for the end of this episode. I'm joking.
Rob, thanks so much for coming on. Give people a pitch for again, you did it at the top of the show, but just let them know where they can find you, where they can find 1001 Album Complaints, all that stuff.
Yes, you can find us 1001 Album Complaints. It publishes a new episode every single Monday morning. It's where all fine podcasts are purveyed, although we recommend Spotify because, of course, we're referencing lots of songs and things like that. So please like and subscribe. I think if you love this kind of banter combined with learning lots of little factoids about what goes on in the studio while these records are being made, the connections between these artists, things like that. We always dig out really interesting stuff in the research every week and tell you a bit of a story while keeping it light and airy with the jokes. I think you'll appreciate it. Check us out on Instagram at 1001 Album Complaints.
And of course, you've had both Jason, the host of the show, and me on as well. And I'm actually coming on again to talk about Mudhoney. I think
that's right. Yeah, I know. It's I don't know when that'll air. That'll air at some point. We haven't even recorded it yet, but yes, it will happen. I'm excited about it, Conan. For you to come in and defend the slings and arrows of our rockiest ways.
Well, and that's one of the scenarios where I've had Steve Turner from Mudhoney on, right? So that'll be interesting.
So we'll be insulting your personal friend,
right?
Yes, that'll make it better, I'm sure.
I like the show. I think it's interesting, even when I don't agree with it. I think you guys approach that from even-handed, intelligent manner, and I think it's worthwhile for any music fan to check it out. I think it's a good show.
Thanks, Conan. I appreciate your support all this time, and we love having you on. You fit in great with us over there. And yeah, I think anyone who loves to chat about music in this way or listen to chatting would really appreciate it. We're trying to entertain you while we give you a bit of education as well.
There you go. And of course, I am your substitute host, usually co-host for Pop Life. And you can find me, Conan Neutron's Protonic Reversal, Thursdays, 8 Eastern, 7 Central, 6 Mountain, 5 Pacific. Streaming live on YouTube and Twitch, podcasted later everywhere. Again, I feel like half of the bands we talked about have had someone from on my show. You
Yes.
can also find my music, Conan Neutron, The Secret Friends, neutronfriends.bandcamp.com. Got a bunch of Midwest touring in May coming up. We just finished a West Coast tour. Follow for that. You can buy records, t-shirts, posters, all that kind of stuff if you're so interested at the site. I'm also on a show called Movie Night Extravaganza, where I'm a co-host, where we are currently going over we just did Wall Street by Oliver Stone. The theme is movies about greed. So we're going to be doing we're doing Glengarry Glen Ross, we're doing Wolf of Wall Street, Big Short, any with Dumb Money this month. So if you're into movies at all, please follow Movie Night Extravaganza. We're always cooking something up there. And of course, don't forget to subscribe on your platform of choice for This Is Revolution, where you don't just get great content like this with Pop Life, but you also get insightful political commentary, philosophy, any whatever it is Jason wants to talk about next, really, is what it comes down to. It's a brilliant show. Happy to be on it. Happy to be your substitute teacher for the night, for the day, morning, whatever is happening right now. Thank you so very much for paying attention, everybody, and peace.
Back when Russia was the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, and they'd say, "Oh, but aren't you so glad that you're in America?" I said, "Well, I know a lot of Russian filmmakers, and they have a lot more freedom than I have. All they have to do is be careful about criticizing the government."